White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. We have just about a minute left. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a first-time call for me, and I was curious. You had a caller before refer to red states as redneck states, and this is the kind of thing that I see just as divisive as stereotyping, say, a white stereotyping blacks, and how you feel that this affects the political climate in the South.
Mr. Dickey.
There is a real, I think it definitely affects the political climate in the South, that Southerners, native-born white Southerners, feel condescended to, very often feel condescended to by other parts of the country and especially by northern liberals. And there's a huge amount of resentment. You know, I was just talking to another correspondent for Newsweek, a British-born correspondent who covered George Wallace's campaign back in 1968 and actually got to know him pretty well. And there was a moment when George Wallace, who seemed to be simple but in fact was a very complicated man, turned to him and said, you know, all we ever had was defiance. The South was conquered, it was occupied, and the key emotion of the South is of defiance. So when Southerners hear themselves just stereotyped across the board as hicks and rednecks and hillbillies, that only makes them more defiant. And sometimes that can be good. Charlotte, North Carolina developed into a huge banking center because people there said, we can't keep going for northern money and being turned away and condescended to. We need banks down in the South that have global reach and that can build the state, the region, and eventually the country from the South. That's defiance at its best. But there's also a lot of defiance that just says, forget hell, and we're going to fly the stars and bars. So is this stereotyping of a redneck South a problem? Yeah, absolutely it is, and it makes things worse. Absolutely it does.
Mr. Dickey, what are you hearing from people who comment on this story on the Newsweek website?
Well, you know, actually it's not that easy to comment on the Newsweek website, so without casting aspersions about the people who do, you have to have a lot of time on your hands. And we tend to get really crazy comments, and a lot of them have been extremely negative. There's really sort of two groups of vituperative readers. One is the group that says, I am stereotyping the South in this article. I don't think they read the article. I think they just look at it and say, aha, another broad brush stereotyping of the South, and they react to that. The other group that really is very angry is a group that seems to think it's as an article of faith that
We have lost our guest, Christopher Dickey of Newsweek. Thank you very much for being with us. Obviously the satellite ran out.